because it sent a message to a reckless, ruthless, lawless president, indicating that your time in office as a reckless, ruthless, lawless president, that time, your days are numbered. No one wants to see you harmed physically. That's not the case. But there are people who do not believe that you should serve out this term of office given your behavior in office. There are people who believe that you ought to be impeached, you ought to be convicted, and you ought to be removed. I am one of the people. I am one of the people. We, the people of the removal movement, believe that you, sir, should be an example of what a righteous government will do when a person who would subvert the Constitution has slithered his way into office. You, sir, should be the example. You, sir, by your behavior, by your actions, by your words, by your deeds, you, sir, should not hold the title President of the United States of America.
Under the Speaker's announced policy of January 3rd, 2025, the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Green, is recognized for 60 minutes as the designee of the minority leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, and still I rise, a proud, liberated Democrat, unbought, unbossed, and unafraid. I rise today because I believe in the Pledge of Allegiance. I am known to wear this tie that has what I consider a meaning that expresses much of what the pledge is all about. There are many people who have said to me that the tie is old, that it appears to be soiled and stained, but it's my favorite tie. It's a tie that I will never surrender. It's a tie that means something to me because it stands for something. It stands for the Pledge of Allegiance. More appropriately, it stands for some specific words within that pledge. Those words are liberty and justice for all. Liberty and justice for all. I do pledge allegiance to liberty and justice for all. And I rise today to thank the courageous persons who on just yesterday took a stand for liberty and justice for all. I rise to thank the 140 persons who on yesterday voted to support H-Res 939, House Resolution 939. This resolution, House 939, impeaching Donald John Trump, President of the United States, for high crimes and misdemeanors. I rise to thank the 140 persons who supported this resolution. I rise to thank the 47 persons who did not oppose what we were doing, but chose to simply say, I will vote present. That was a significant vote as well. I rise to thank them. All of these persons had the courage to say to Donald John Trump, things are changing in this country. You are likely to face a vote of 218 more persons who would vote to have you impeached. I rise to thank them for their courage. But I also rise with my cane in hand to thank two people. I want to thank John Boniface. John Boniface, constitutional scholar John Boniface. There are many constitutional scholars in this country. Let me hearken back just a moment to make this point perspicuously clear. There were many people who understood what invidious discrimination known as segregation, but in fact was racism, there were many who knew what it was. They understood it. They could articulate it well. They were great orators. But they had something that set them apart from Dr. King. It was a lack of courage. Dr. King was set apart from the intellectuals and great orators of his time because he had courage. It was his courage that allowed him to go to Birmingham, and from the Birmingham jail to write a letter that explained why the movement existed and why it was so important. It was courage. John Boniface, constitutional scholar par excellence. John Boniface has something that many other constitutional scholars just don't have. They're brilliant. They can elucidate and explain to you the Federalist Papers in great detail. They can tell you why you shouldn't or why you should do something. But they don't have the courage of John Boniface. The courage to speak not only truth to power. You can speak truth to power by simply saying, power, there's a problem, and we need to address it. He will speak truth about power, which means you go to power and you say, power, there's a problem, and you're it. You are it. John Boniface has that kind of power. John Boniface has that kind of courage. John Boniface, I thank you for what you have done to help me move impeachment to the floor of the House of Representatives for a vote. I want history to know who you were. I want people to know that you left big tracks in the sands of time. I want people to know that you came from one direction and that you proceeded to another, a righteous direction. I want people to know who you are. I want people to know who Jessica Denson is, who is the mother, founder of the Removal Coalition, who believes that impeachment, conviction, and removal, that's a part of the process, but it is also the solution. Jessica Denson is a courageous woman who has a voice that is sometimes amazing to me in terms of how she so clearly articulates the issues of our time. I want people to know that she had the courage to be there when we were in front of the Lincoln Monument, to be there, to be the key, the cornerstone of the movement that caused us to get to the Lincoln Monument. That she was there to support, but also to push for impeachment, conviction, and removal. She is truly one of the great patriots of our time. I thank you for your courage. I also want to thank the millions of people now who are associating themselves with this courage of Boniface, with this courage of Denson, with this courage of the 140 who on yesterday voted to support H-Res 939, of the 47 who also took a position that I appreciate greatly. There is courage. I have to mention courage because these things don't happen simply because you want them to. It is not easy to do what we did yesterday. It is not. There are all sorts of forces, cross currents, winds, all sorts of energy, pushing back. Don't do it. Let me pause for a moment and say this. Those who are antithetical to my views, they like to say that Al Green has gone rogue. It's in the papers today. Al Green is coming before Congress and he has his cane and he's just waving his cane. That's what they say. They would have me become a person who is just another person from some dark place who doesn't know what he's talking about. So they talk about waving my cane. Yes, I'm waving my cane. And I'm pointing it straight at all of you who are antithetical to righteousness, antithetical to what we did yesterday in bringing these articles to a vote. I'm pointing my cane at you. I'm pointing at those people who are a part of the news media, who will bring me up and say things about me, but won't allow me to respond to them. You know who you are. But as I was saying, I want people to know about this courage and the pushback and the antithetical forces. I want people to know about it. And I want people to know that I understand what happened yesterday. It was comparable to what happened at the Edmund Pettus Bridge. Yesterday was a seminal moment in time. It was comparable to what happened. It was comparable to what happened when John Lewis explained it to me. What many people never discuss is the fact that there were many people who thought that you shouldn't go to the Edmund Pettus Bridge. It's too dangerous. If you go to the Edmund Pettus Bridge, you could be hurt. You know what the constabulary will do. There were people who warned them, admonished them, pleaded with some of them, saying, those people will hurt you. These people are inspired by hate. There's some evil people among them. It was courage, however, that said, go on to the Edmund Pettus Bridge. Go on to the Edmund Pettus Bridge. Not only did they go, but when they reached that crest, they could see a point where the constabulary was there, some on horseback. And they knew at that point that some of those people who admonished them were right. But they marched on. They did not allow fear to prevent them from doing a righteous thing, even when they knew the consequences could be harmful. I keep saying it, and I'll say it until I make my transition. John Lewis told me that he thought he was going to die on that bridge. But he marched on. Yesterday, in spite of a lot of admonitions, people marched on. People marched on and they took a courageous vote. A vote that is going to be marked as a seminal moment in time. A vote that will have an impact on the rest of time. Because it sent a message to a reckless, ruthless, lawless president, indicating that your time in office as a reckless, ruthless, lawless president, that time, your days are numbered. No one wants to see you harmed physically. That's not the case. But there are people who do not believe that you should serve out this term of office given your behavior in office. There are people who believe that you ought to be impeached, you ought to be convicted, and you ought to be removed. I am one of the people. I am one of the people. We, the people of the removal movement, believe that you, sir, should be an example of what a righteous government will do when a person who would subvert the Constitution has slithered his way into office. You, sir, should be the example. You, sir, by your behavior, by your actions, by your words, by your deeds, you, sir, should not hold the title President of the United States of America. And you should be removed. I know that there are some who would want to wait. Well, he'll leave office in a couple of years. And after he leaves office in a couple of years, we'll get back to our normal lives. Not the case. This man is having a long-term impact on American society. Not the case. There are others who want to mimic him. There are many Trumps. Not many in terms of numbers, although I could argue that there are large numbers, but there are many in terms of being smaller now who would like to enlarge their persona, enlarge their image, enlarge their reach, enlarge their power. Many Trumps who want to be another Donald Trump. They're out there. And we need to do something to let people know that when you behave as he has behaved, justice will be served. Yesterday, the sword of justice swung across the House of Representatives, and it left its indelible mark. People know now that we mean business. Yes, we mean business. So to the millions of people who have joined the impeach, convict, and removal coalition, I thank you for being there. I especially thank the persons who were on the mall at the Lincoln Memorial. Now I'd like to respond to the question, if I haven't already, why are you doing this, Al Green? That really is not the question. The question really is, why wouldn't I do it? Why wouldn't I do it when I have in my hand language that motivates me to do it? Let me read what I bear in my hand. It says here, Dick Cheney's statement. For further edification, that would be Vice President Dick Cheney. This is his statement on Donald Trump's statement, talking about Donald Trump. This is something that NPR published, September 6, 2024. Vice President Dick Cheney. By the way, he was a Republican. I need not say it, but I think that it adds to what I'm about to say. I am a Democrat. I think we were in different places politically. But when it comes to the country, we're in the same place. We were in the same place then, we're in the same place now. And here is what he said. In our nation's 248-year history, there has never been an individual who is a greater threat to American democracy. Correction. A greater threat to our republic than Donald Trump. Let me repeat it. In our nation's 248-year history, there has never been an individual who is a greater threat to our republic than Donald Trump. But then he goes on to inspire. To inspire. Because he says, as citizens, we each have a duty. I would add the word responsibility. We each have a duty to put our country above partisanship. Put our country above partisanship to defend our Constitution. Put our country above partisanship and defend our Constitution. Though those words inspire me, I believe that he is right. We have to put country above partisanship. We got to defend the Constitution. That means defend liberty and justice for all, not in the Constitution, but it is symbolic of what the Constitution represents. It means defend your Fifth Amendment rights, right to due process, 14th Amendment also. Defend your right to free speech. Defend your right to say that members of the military don't have to follow illegal orders. In fact, must not follow illegal orders. That's what he's talking about. That's the Constitution. That's what comes out of the Constitution, although it may not be explicated with this kind of specificity within the Constitution. But that's it. You got a right to say. Don't follow illegal orders. That's a mandate. It's not something that's optional. You got a right to say it. And you got a right to say it without having someone indicate that you somehow have done something wrong and that you somehow ought to be hanged. Now, I'll say more about that in just a moment. I have much to say about that. But before I say it, I want to say this. If you, any one of you, if I threatened the President of the United States of America, got a punishment here in my hand, if you're convicted under 18 U.S.C. Section 871 of threatening the President of the United States, you can suffer consequences, including up to 5 years in a federal prison, fines of $250,000, a permanent felony record, possible restrictions on future employment, firearm ownership, and other rights. So now, if I or any one of you should indicate in some way that the president ought to somehow receive a death sentence, or if I or one of you should indicate that the president ought to be hanged, I guarantee you this president would have you arrested. I guarantee you, you would be incarcerated. I guarantee you, because you can indict a ham sandwich, they say, you would be indicted, and I guarantee you, you would go to trial. If you do something that is considered threatening, if you say, here's a good word, if you say the president ought to receive death, be punishable by death, or if you say that he ought to be hanged, as the president has said here when he posted a third party's post indicating, hang them, Washington would, indicating here that their behavior was seditious behavior punishable by death. Now, I'm talking about the persons who did the right thing, the righteous thing, the lawful thing of saying to people in the military, don't follow illegal orders. And they find themselves, not the president, but themselves being suspect. The president, who has threatened execution, people don't want him impeached. Some. Now, there are some who do, but they have various reasons for why they can't take the stand. They can't say it. Well, I can. So for all of you who want to say it and can't say it, I'm saying it for you. I'm saying he should have been impeached. I'm saying that if ever there was a president in the history of the United States of America who should be impeached, it is Donald John Trump. What he said, he should be impeached for. Now, there are people who would say, well, you do know that he went over to Fox News, that he slithered his way over there. And after being there, he indicated that he didn't intend for anybody to be killed. Maybe not in those exact words. But he didn't intend. He didn't intend for that to be the case. Do you really think that if I said the president ought to be hanged, that I could go over to Fox, well, Fox wouldn't allow me to say it, but some news source and say, oh, no, forgive me, I made a mistake, it was a slip of my tongue. No, this president would not allow it. He would consider this a threat. I'd be facing a fine. I'd be facing going to prison. But the president is with impunity, saving what happened yesterday, with impunity, making threats against judges, making threats against members of Congress. And for those who say, well, that's just Congress and they're just judges, let me tell you how it impacts your life. If you go before one of the judges that the president has threatened and you believe that the president's threats can make a difference, will you question the judgment of the judge? He puts in the judiciary in question, the judgments, when he can intimidate judges to the extent that you think judges are acting because of the president's actions that he's taken against the judge. This is bigger than you are as a person. It's about all of us as people, threatening the judiciary, threatening the independence of the judiciary, not respecting the separation of powers. It impacts you, me. We all can be judged at some point. We want to believe that the judge is going to be objective, that he's not going to be subjective, that he's not going to, or she's not going to subject her most precious judicious thoughts to the whims of a president who is reckless, ruthless, and lawless. That's what you want to believe. Okay, well, maybe that takes care of the judges, Congressman Green, but what about members of Congress? He's just threatening them. Remember, we had a member of Congress who was wounded. There was an attempt to assassinate her. There were innocent bystanders there with her who were harmed, deadly. It's about all of us. It's about when we're out in the public. It's about some person taking to heart what the president said when he said death, when he said hang them. It's about all of us. So I have no regrets for what I have done, zero, and would challenge anyone to come and stand over here or here and stand with me. I challenge you to come and stand and point out why I shouldn't have done what I've done, or we shouldn't have done what we have done, meaning those who are part of the removal coalition. Come, I challenge you. Let's talk before the world. Any one of you. I'm proud of what I've done. I would do it again. I want you to know that in doing this, we are putting the country above some people. We are. Because it's the country that contains all of the people. All of the people are more important than some 1 or 2, 10 people maybe 23. More important than 23 people. It's the country we're trying to save. Well, how do you save the country without having control of the House of Representatives, Al? By showing the country that what is happening to this country is going to cause us to dissolve into something that we have been fighting. We're already at the point of having a person who is maybe less than a dictator, but an authoritarian. We're getting close. When the president controls one side of the aisle that has a majority, the Republicans, when a president, and that's in the House, controls one side of the aisle called Republicans in the Senate, when a president has stacked the Supreme Court of the United States, yes, he stacked the deck. when he stacked the Supreme Court and he's get rulings that people never thought the Supreme Court would render? All that's left is impeachment. That's all that's left. And there are those who will say, well, let's just wait. Why don't we wait? They told Dr. King to wait. One of the things that Dr. King said in response to this notion that we must wait, one of the things that he said was, the time is always right to do what is right. So now, I say to you, what we did yesterday was not only right, it was righteous. Because everything in those articles is true. It's righteous. And we don't have constitutional scholars coming out and saying, well, it really doesn't comply with Federalist number whatever. That's not the argument. The argument is, this is not the time. I differ. The time, as Dr. King put it, is always right to do what is right. Now, Dr. King didn't expect everybody to do what was right when he was doing it. And I don't expect everybody who believes that what we're doing is right but won't do it themselves to do what is right with us. I understand. But what I don't want you to do, and I beg that you not do, is assault the people who are standing up for you in clever language. Don't do that. Don't assault us. We may fight back, but don't do that. I have bigger things to do. I'm not going to say ugly things. But my point is, this is bigger than any one of us in this Congress. It is bigger than the Congress, House, and the Senate together, and the judiciary. This is about the country. What kind of country will he leave when he leaves office? That's what we're dealing with. And my friends across the aisle are very much aware of how he is encroaching upon the separation of powers, the judiciary, how he is threatening the Supreme Court and threatening judges with abusive, vituperative language. When you threaten one judge, you're threatening them all. So let's not kid ourselves. He's doing it. So now I'm going to share this with you. I know who this president is. I want to make sure that you understand that I'm going to a different topic in sharing with you who he is. But I want to tell you who he is. Because in telling you who he is, I will be going to a different topic. I've made my point about impeachment. But I want to tell you who he is. Because I've seen him before. I know him. This is a different topic now, because there's more to be said about this president than what was said in the articles of impeachment.